Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Experience Beyond podcast. In this episode, we are diving deep into the fascinating world of visitor experience. I'm Ananigam, your host. As co-founder and director of XEBO.ai and also co-founder and promoter of Foresight CX, I understand the crucial role visitor experience plays in building strong visitor and destination attractiveness. To explore this further, today we are joined by a CX expert who is passionate about seeing the unseen, Liz Berks. Liz is the co-founder and CEO of Foresight CX, a company dedicated to uncovering hidden insights and driving superior visitor experiences. Liz has also held leadership positions at Cathay Pacific, ABN Impact, and Alida, showcasing her extensive background in customer experience strategy and research. She is also the founding member of Women in CX, world's first online membership community for women in customer experience. Liz is known for her innovative approach and her commitment to ethical data practices. We are thrilled to learn from her today. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you so much, Anand. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Liz, you have had a fascinating journey from research to founding Foresight CX and being involved in global women in CX community. Can you share what sparked your interest in customer experience and how you have seen the field evolve over the years?
Well, I mean, it's been a very interesting journey from my perspective, and I would say not one that I particularly planned, but one that has sort of just evolved over time with some of the amazing opportunities that I have had. So I actually, in terms of my sort of formal career, I actually started in market research and consumer insights back in London nearly 20 years ago now.
Wow.
And so I joined on a graduate scheme for a global market research agency, and I worked with them for about 4 years. And that was an amazing place to get a really good grounding in what it meant to really understand customers. Now, I happened to be in a team that specialized in both customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. And given that this was nearly 20 years ago, customer experience as the sort of consulting concept that we know and or the size it is now just didn't exist. We were focusing very much on sort of satisfaction as a single metric. But it gave me a really good grounding, and I really learned to love the process of sort of analyzing customer data and trying to understand why customers made certain decisions or what was driving their decision-making process or why they said they were happy or not with the situation. I was then lucky enough to move to Hong Kong. I got a fantastic opportunity to work for an insights consultancy in Hong Kong, and I continued my journey there in terms of sort of learning about consumer. And while I was working as they were my client, and I was working on a lot of their projects, running their global customer experience, customer satisfaction tracking survey, I got an opportunity to work in-house. And I would say that this was my first experience of sort of moving beyond just looking at the insights to really looking at how do we convert those insights into action, into product, quite literally. So I worked in the product team, and we were developing what we would now call the passenger experience for the premium cabins. At the time, we called it the product experience, but it was all around how would the seats be? What would the service look like? What should the food be? A whole team looked at in terms of what the ground experience, when someone arrived at the airport, right the way through to getting on the flight, the experience during the flight, and then getting off at the other end. And it was such an amazing opportunity to work in a role where I got to take customer understanding and really think about, okay, well, how do I translate that into a strategy? How do I translate this into something that I can get other teams in the business on board? How do I get them to understand why it's so important that we need to look at this feature? Or why is it so important that this type of service is available to passengers? So it was a real moment for me around understanding not just the sort of collection and analysis of customer information, but how does that impact a business, and how do we translate that into business findings. I continued my journey after Hong Kong, and I actually moved myself to Sydney. And again, there I was really working in the space of taking the learnings of how do I help companies translate what they're being told through research reports and turn that into action within their business and actually embed that within their business. So I got to do that for a good sort of 5 years in Sydney. Then I moved to Singapore and I did a very similar thing again. And fast forward to 2020, and I find myself in Saudi Arabia. I got the opportunity to move here, and I was looking for a new opportunity to really embed everything that I'd done until then. So how do I take all of this knowledge that I have about gathering customer insights, about finding sort of the key information, the key insights within a report, and actually helping companies translate that into what it means for them as a business. And of course, Anand, that is when we met towards the end of 2020. And it was a brilliant time. I think through discussions with you and discussions with other people, I really formulated in my mind how I wanted to merge this idea of a sort of consulting with insights and customer experience consulting with insights, and Foresight CX was born. Now, I also think that I was truly lucky around this time. So when we set this up in February 2021, I happened to come across a small group of women who were based partly out the UK and partly out of other markets, who were looking for other founding members to help build the world's first global online women in customer experience community. And so I joined as one of the founding members, and it was such an incredible opportunity to sort of build my proposition and what I was looking at alongside what we wanted to do to raise the profile of women working in customer experience globally. And so I got to get involved with this incredible community of women who were based, I think in the initial stage, from sort of 10 or 15 different countries. And we came up with the whole sort of the product fit. So what was it that we were offering, and what is it that people really, or women really wanted and needed to help build profiles within the industry, to help expand knowledge and to sort of promote the progression of women through the customer experience industry. And so I would say over the last 3.5 years since the community launched, it's been an amazing journey for me to be able to develop both Foresight CX, the company, alongside the women in CX community, and see both the progression of both over the last 3.5 years, which has been fantastic.
Such fascinating journey, Liz. I envy you. You got so much exposure, traveled across the globe, learned so many things. In 20 years, you must have seen how CX has evolved.
It is. I mean, I think one of the things that I find most interesting is how what we perceive as sort of the customer experience industry now, it existed 20 years ago, but in a way that we weren't talking about it. And I think it's great now that it really is recognized as a specific industry, and the impact that it can have on a business, and the importance of it being a vertical within a business, with its own sort of area of focus. But, you know, we both know we've been working on this for 20 years, but it's sort of developed, you know, the industry has actually become something over the last 20 years. And I also find it really interesting, you know, I mentioned before, talked about my formal career. You know, I started my formal career in insights. would say I actually started my customer experience career a good 35 years ago when I when I sort of started to have my first job. So from as a young person, I worked in a shop, I worked in a restaurant, I worked in a hotel. At university, I worked in a bank, I worked in bars, and all of these, I was doing customer-facing roles. So actually, from a very young age, before I'd even started my formal career, I had embedded a lot of the sort of principles of customer service, which is then such a big pillar of customer experience. So it's I often reflect now about, when I'm looking at customer experience as a whole, how much my opinion of it has been shaped by the first sort of 10 years before I even got into the sort of formal career that I now have.
So fascinating. Given that Foresight CX focus is on seeing the unseen, can you elaborate on how you approach visitor experience differently from traditional methods? What unique methodologies or frameworks have you developed to gain deeper insights?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about is that when we talk about customer experience or visitor experience or guest experience, especially when we talk about sort of feedback programs, so where we're trying to find out about what our visitors are feeling and we want to get their opinions. Very often when I've worked with clients, if they have an existing program, it's focusing on a single data source, maybe a survey, and often a single number, so tracking a number over time. And some of the problems with this is that, one, there's not a sort of whole picture of customer experience, as many people point out with surveys. Surveys don't always cover your whole customer database. It doesn't cover it may not cover all of your different types of visitors that you have. And secondly, when you're just tracking a number, you lose the opportunity to be really embedding understanding within the organization and actually using that understanding to create change, to develop solutions. So one of the things that I really focus on with clients is to look at more of a framework of what are all of the different data sources that are available to you that you can integrate together to build the overall picture. And so, surveys should definitely be one part of that. But actually, usually there's a lot of different data sources available that we can use. And some of those are free. They're internally available within a company. It's just a case of actually locating those, identifying what information is available. As well as for me, I've been lucky enough in my career to be, in terms of research, a dualist. So I do both quantitative research and qualitative. I love both. I love numbers, but I love the understanding. And for me, any visitor experience program that doesn't involve some kind of qualitative or deep dive understanding into customers, into your visitors, you're missing that vital piece of information that is going to help you really understand what's going on and actually help you innovate for the future. Visitor journey mapping or customer journey mapping is a tool that has become very popular. And to do visitor journey mapping effectively, you need to have that qualitative and that quantitative data. I would also say one of the most interesting parts that we're looking at now is things like social media and making sure that wherever you have social media sources available to you, that is getting integrated in with your other findings. Again, building out that bigger picture of what's happening.
Very fascinating. So, it's both qualitative, quantitative, as well as different types of sources which can be used. So whether the data is collected through asking questions, doing surveys, focus group discussions, or even looking at sources like your digital platforms, social media, your handles and all, whatever information you are getting from the customers, Also, your internal sources like call centers. There are so many customers who are calling to your call centers. They've got their expression, they are expressing their needs, they are expressing their frustration. So you have got so many inputs coming through call centers, as well as I think observational data. You're observing
Absolutely.
customers at the airports while they are checking in, while they are, standing in the queue, waiting in the lounge, so on.
Yeah, and I think this is a part where many organizations are doing customer experience feedback without even knowing that they're doing it. If you have any staff member who is sort of on a periodical basis going in and auditing and just making sure that things are where they should be, and maybe staff are interacting with the visitors in the right way, that's all part of the information that should be gathered together. Like you say, anything coming through the call center, your top 10 complaints on a monthly basis are a brilliant place to start for understanding pain points along the visitor journey and where you might want to focus. So I think, what I'm really trying to do now is to help our clients really identify what is available, so that they can start pulling that together in a consistent and coherent way that helps them understand their visitor journey.
Excellent. Now, given your extensive experience, what are the most pressing challenges and emerging trends you see in visitor experience today? And how are these trends impacting businesses and their strategies?
Yeah, so I think there's many things that are coming in, and as much as it's visitor experience, it's also a wider customer experience issue, but they're, changing consumer expectations. And I think that definitely is a big thing around visitors. So it's other industries that are actually impacting the visitor experience. So as other industries progress in certain parts of using technology just to make processes easier, make things like bookings easier, making it easier for customers to be able to access their information, to be able to work out how to get to their destination, from the parking to the arrival. Sort of, you think about queuing nowadays, customers don't want to queue anymore, but so much of a sort of a visitor destination can involve that still. So I think one of the biggest challenges is for destinations to really pull themselves out of the sort of the destination itself, and to look at the wider picture, right from the research and the booking process through to the understanding of how to visit a destination, as well as their experience on the ground. And technology can enable us in so many ways to be improving the visitor experience, as well as being able to gather feedback on those experiences. So, I mean, you just think of, Disney is always cited as an amazing example. And one of the things they have is the magic bands. So where all of your information is held, you can use it for payment, you can use it to plan your trips. But I think, in the future, and we're going to start seeing it very soon, these bands can be used, or the information on there can be used by companies to help feed into understanding the visitor experience. So, for example, if you imagine, I know, sort of speaking with airports about some technology that is being looked at now, which is using the existing CCTV and analyzing it, so you can see where there's bottlenecks, where queues are building, so you can put more staff on. Now imagine you apply a similar idea to a visitor destination, where you're seeing where visitors are starting to crowd in certain places. You overlay that with certain satisfaction feedback that you're getting back, and very quickly you can start to see where you're driving spikes of happiness or spikes of dissatisfaction. So I think for me, it's going to be about using a lot of internal data and getting technology to help use that internal data more effectively, so that we can start to predict where visitors are going to
Absolutely.
be feeling dissatisfied. What is it? And before visitors even get to the point of feeling dissatisfied, we're alleviating those issues or putting solutions into place, opening new gates if we're talking about going into an entertainment park, so that we can, sort of start to manage the visitor experience in real time as it's actually happening.
So if I understand correctly, you are talking about use of technology to proactively manage the visitor experience instead of being reactive. Fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's where technology is sort of taking us. There's been so much talk about it over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, and I feel like we're actually at a point now where it can start to be implemented. That we take, traditionally feedback has always been a very reactive process. We collect something, we think about it, we input a solution. But I think we're on the cusp now of really being able to integrate the two, so that, visitor feedback is no longer seen as a sort of reactive process, but something that we can do in the moment and proactively solve as it happens.
Absolutely. So how do you recommend organizations understand the visitor experience and identify areas for improvement? Because that's very critical. Can you discuss the challenges and best practices for measuring visitor experience?
Yeah, so I think, my first place to start is always an internal review. Rather than jumping straight into building a survey or building some research, collecting feedback, is to actually step back and look internally to see what is happening within the business, so that we can identify what are all the different data sources that you have available already that can give you some indication of what is happening in terms of the visitor experience. Then start to look at, okay, well, where are the gaps in our knowledge? Where do we need to either implement a survey or maybe implement some form of auditing? Where is it that you need to start to build more understanding of your customers? So I do really love personas and customer journey mapping. I think it is very hard for businesses to effectively solve their visitor experience problem if they don't properly understand their different visitor groups. There's not one type of visitor groups. You will have many different types. You might have young singles or couples. You might have those with young families, those with older families, those with different needs. And it's really important that each of these groups are considered separately, really understood. What are their expectations when they're visiting a destination? What is it that they really need over and above other groups? And then mapping that across a journey. So for all of the stages, and as I said before, never forgetting that really early research stage where people are trying to find out about your destination, find out what's available there, how can they visit different things, what's the booking process. So really taking a sort of long, wide view at the visitor journey and mapping that out for your different persona groups, so that you can identify for each group, okay, so where are some of the key pain points that are coming up that we need to solve for? And often, when you solve for a smaller group, you find that you build or you improve the experience for a much wider group as well.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for sharing all these insights, very valuable insights. Now, as part of my podcast, I have a very interesting second section, which is rapid fire. Rapid fire, I'll throw some 10 questions to you, and you need to answer those quickly. So these are random questions which have been generated by AI. Even I have not generated these questions. So are you ready?
I think so. I'm a little nervous, I have to say, but I'm ready.
It's just random, very simple questions. So just one word or few sentence answers would do. So let's start.
Go.
So coffee or tea?
Coffee now. The English in me is horrified to hear myself say coffee, but yes, coffee now.
Early bird or night owl?
Again, nowadays an early bird.
Okay. What's your favorite way to unwind after a busy day?
I'm lucky enough in Riyadh to be living in a beautiful location with such a wonderful community of people. And I have friends who run yoga classes. And by far my favorite thing now is to do an evening yoga class.
Nice. Best piece of advice you have ever received?
Be kind.
Interesting.
I think that's the number one thing. And I think, yeah, be kind.
Yeah, today's world, I think that's the most important thing we require. Be
Yeah.
kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
One CX tool you can't live without.
Ooh, that's a really good one. It has to be, for me, it has to be journey mapping.
What's your go-to productivity hack?
For me, diary management. So blocking time in my diary to achieve certain things and setting myself a list of 3 things that have to be done in that day.
I'll start doing that. Favorite book on customer experience?
Oh, I can't think of one on that.
I recently read something which was from your industry, which is SOAR, which is on airlines. And I was so fascinated on how airline industries are trying to woo their customers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That
an
is a good
interesting
recommendation. Yeah.
Most memorable customer experience you have had?
I'm not picking one out the top of my head at the moment, but for me, it always comes down to the people. And so whoever it is who's sort of serving me at the time, and their understanding of what it is I'm trying to do. So whether they are being particularly empathetic with me and understanding my situation, or I can think of so many times when I've traveled overseas with my small children, and any location that understands a parent's sort of situation when they're somewhere with small children and actually eases a process with them is always a winner in my book. So yeah, any experience where they really understood the needs of me as I've walked into the room.
Nice. And what's your hidden talent? And hide it from the world. Don't leave it hidden.
Yeah, maybe is it have I got a secret talent? I'm not sure I've discovered anything yet that is my secret talent.
What I've seen, it's not secret anymore. It's the passion that you bring to your work and what you do. I would not call it hidden or because it shows. It shows on you. So that's a talent that I have seen in you.
I would like to think that one of my talents is to create enjoyable working atmospheres and relationships. I like when I'm doing a project, whether I'm working with a client or with my team, I think we should always strive to be making our sort of working lives enjoyable. We spend a lot of time at work, so I'd say that's probably, as you said, it's not hidden, but it's one of the things that I would like to say that people would remember about me.
And my final question, one word to describe your approach to CX.
You said it already, passion.
Thank you. Yeah. So maybe that was not hidden talent, but it was so obvious. It shows.
Yeah.
Agree completely. Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much for your valuable inputs. We hope this conversation to others with Liz sparks a lot of insightful discussions on how to elevate visitor experiences across their organization. A big thank you again, Liz, for sharing your valuable knowledge. Until next time, keep exploring the world of customer experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anand. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you for your time, Liz.